Welcome to the Game Before the Money podcast, dedicated to sharing the life stories of NFL legends. Today's guest, Steelers Hall of Fame center, Dermontti Dawson. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Game Before the Money podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Michael. Please remember that the Game Before the Money is a 501c3 nonprofit. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a donation at thegamebeforethemoney.com. Also, please consider leaving a nice review about the podcast on your favorite podcast app and let your friends know about the Game Before the Money podcast. Today's guest is Dermontti Dawson, the Hall of Fame center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, it's fairly uncommon in sports for a team to transition from one Hall of Famer to another at any given position. The New York Yankees had Joe DiMaggio retire, and a kid named Mickey Mantle took over in center field. That's one example. In football, the 49ers transitioned from Joe Montana to Steve Young at quarterback. It's a rare occurrence, but the Pittsburgh Steelers went from Hall of Fame center Mike Webster to my guest today, Hall of Fame center Dermontti Dawson. And it's pretty incredible to think about. Pittsburgh drafted Mike Webster in 1974. And after Webster left the Steelers following the 1988 season, Dermontti Dawson took over at center and played until the year 2000. Okay? That's a Hall of Fame center lining up for the Steelers from 1974 into the next century. That is incredible. A lot of people don't know that Dermontti Dawson actually started out as a guard for the Steelers. He'll tell you how he got the starting job at center in this program. Dawson grew up in Kentucky. He also attended the University of Kentucky. Sounds like it might have been an obvious choice for him, but there's an interesting story behind that. Dawson was drafted by the Steelers in 1988. He's going to discuss playing for the great Chuck Noll. He's going to share what it was like when Hall of Fame running back Jerome Bettis came over from the Rams and what it was like to block for him. And he's also going to talk about playing for another Hall of Fame coach, Bill Cowher. One thing that's important to know about Dermontti Dawson's tremendous career is that he pulled from the center position. This was a skill that was unique to him. He would snap the ball and then pull, meaning run to his left or to his right to block. That took a special amount of ability, versatility, and strength to be able to do that. He's going to give you the story behind that technique and how it got started in this interview. Here is the Game Before the Money interview with Pittsburgh Steelers legend Dermontti Dawson. You grew up in Lexington, Kentucky? Were you big?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Were you a big Wildcats fan then growing up?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, everybody's a Wildcat fan when you grew up in Lexington, you know, for basketball and football.
Yeah, were you a basketball player when you were young too? Were you looking
No, hey, you know, hey Jackson, I played baseball when I was coming up, and I didn't start football until later. I played 1 year like Pop Warner football, but I really didn't get into football until high school. But it was more track and field and baseball for me.
Oh, and what kind of lifted your football career off then in high school?
Well, in high school, I had two of my buddies, Mark Logan and Cornell Burbage, who also were my teammates on the track team. And it all started, you know, Steve Parker, who was a new coach at our high school my sophomore year, I think it was. one day I was coming out of chemistry class, and I ran into him, and he said, "Son, where have you been all my life?" And he put his arms on, hit me right on the shoulders, and said, "Where have you been all my life?" And then my teammates on the track team, Mark Logan and Cornell Burbage, convinced me to go out for football my junior year. After that, I went out and started, playing football my junior year in high school.
Wow, that's amazing, because most people, they start, a lot younger with the JV and everything, and you went right to varsity as a junior. And
Yeah. It's just the way it kind of worked out.
Was Kentucky just an obvious choice for you? Did you have other college options? What was that process?
Yeah, I did have other college options. I had scholarship offers to Tennessee, Michigan State, UCLA. But at that time, my girlfriend and I were dating, and I was a year ahead of her. So she wanted to go to Ohio State, and I wanted to go to Michigan State or UCLA. So we made a pact that I would go to UK, and, she would come to UK after she graduated as well. And, we ended up getting married, and we're married for 23 and a half years before we got divorced, and two beautiful kids, from our marriage, and a son who is now 31 and my daughter who is 29. So that was the reason why I went to UK. I was in love.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And what, it's very similar to what Bart Starr told me, because Bear Bryant had wanted him to come to Kentucky, and he stayed in Alabama because his girlfriend was going to Auburn, and they ended up being married.
Well, hey, Jackson, you see it all the time, a man follows a woman or a woman follows a man. Love it does strange things to you.
Yeah, it definitely. That's a great way to make a decision too.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
And you mentioned about getting stronger in college and everything. I read something in one of the Steeler press guides that you had won an SEC weightlifting contest. Can you tell me
what we ended up doing? Yeah, this was, I was like a all SEC. They had like this weightlifting team or strong team, and it was based on combined weights. We didn't have a competition, throughout the SEC. What we did, we had our strength coach at UK, Pat Etcheberry. So every lift, I think they went on bench, squat, and power cleans. And so I ended up, doing the most after they report all the different weights. I think I had the most weights out of anybody in the SEC as far as total lifts, total pounds. And so I was named to, first team all strength team for SEC. And that was my senior year and junior year, I think it was.
Wow, that's impressive. It was kind of a blind competition. You guys didn't get in a room and try to outlift each other.
No. Only time that we would lift amongst ourselves and have a little competition was like winter workouts, where, guys are in there working out and you're trying to max out. So, of course, you want to be the top dog when it comes to most of the lifts. So I was up at the top pretty much every year.
And your college coach was Jerry Claiborne.
Jerry Claiborne came in right before he came in 1982. And I was the class of 1983. And Jerry Claiborne came from University of Maryland. But, Jerry Claiborne, man, he was a great coach, man. He used to always have his little saying, be the best, be the best. And that's one of the mottos that I really took to heart when you talk about, something you remember. Coach Claiborne used to always say, be the best. He said, try to be the best at everything you try to accomplish or try to do. And I took that to heart. And that's what I kind of took that into my pro career when I was drafted as a rookie in '88 to Pittsburgh, and always trying to continue to be the best and always improve on my technique, improve on my strength, just make sure that I knew what I was doing, as far as assignment wise and writing stuff down. And that made a lasting impression on me as a young man, just listening to Coach Jerry Claiborne.
You came into the Steelers as a second round pick in '88, and they started playing you at guard.
Yeah. Well, hey, Michael, I was originally a pulling guard at University of Kentucky as well. And then, how I became center is because I used to go to the scout team at UK and go against the number one offense. And so I played a little center throughout college. And then they switched me to defensive line, I think my junior year, and wanted me to play defensive tackle. And this was in spring ball when they made that switch. And then they switched me back to guard at the end of spring practice. But, I was a pulling guard, but I also used to play center for the scout team. And then also in the bowl game, we played against Wisconsin in the Hall of Fame bowl game down in Mobile, Alabama. And this was in 87, I think it was. And they switched me to center because our center went down and I was starting to guard at that time. So I did have some experience, playing center just for the scout team.
Yeah, and in a bowl game too.
Yeah. And then, when I came to Pittsburgh in 88, they drafted me originally as a guard. And then, of course, you had Mike Webster, who was the center, and I played beside Mike. But I didn't start until my fourth game of my rookie year. I finished out the year after I got hurt, and I was on IR because I got my knee hurt my rookie year. And then I only started 8 games my rookie year at guard. But after my rookie season, then Chuck Noll had called me into his office and said, we want to switch you to center because Mike was leaving to go to Kansas City. And Chuck Noll just took me in the office and said, hey, I'm just going to switch you to center and let you and Chuck Lanza kind of fight it out for the position. And I ended up winning the job.
Was your experience in college and maybe even playing defensive tackle, how much did that help you in the center position, kind of knowing what someone else was going to do?
Well, not at all, because, it's totally different. I only played for spring ball, just a few weeks of spring ball, spring practice and stuff, being defense tackle. But other than that, I was always a guard. And then making that transition to center, that's totally different because, you got to, you're pretty much a quarterback of the O-line. And, you got to have your ears open and your eyes open as well, because you got to make adjustments to the offense, if audible is called or, change the pass protection based on what you see and what play is called. As far as making that transition, being defense tackle didn't have anything to do with making that transition to center. It's a totally different job.
But you did mention something I'm really glad you brought up, saying that the center is kind of the quarterback of the offensive line. I've heard other people say that as well. Can you kind of walk us through what you're looking for when you line up at the center and for a typical play?
Yeah. Just say for instance, a pass play. Usually our protection, our responsibility as an O-line is, the 4 big guys, defensive tackle, ends, and then also the Mike linebacker kind of dictates because he's right in the middle and he's a clear and present danger right in the middle if you were to blitz. So when you come up to the line of scrimmage, we have base calls where you have like slide protections where you slide one way and the back is blocking the opposite direction. Or you have like a quick pass where we're responsible for the 4 big guys on the line of scrimmage and the middle linebackers. So we have to make various calls when we go up there based on the alignment of the middle backer, which is a Mike linebacker, we call him. And then also the configuration of the defensive line, whether they're in an over or an under defense, and an over defense being stacked towards the tight end, under defense is being on the open side of the offense where the tight end's on the opposite side. So it depends on what kind of pass play is called. And so our responsibilities are based on, whether it's a quick pass or slide protection. So we have to make all those adjustments. And sometimes we come up to the line of scrimmage and then they've got a different defense where we're kind of outmanned as far as protection wise. So the quarterback has to call an audible. And so we have to know what that audible means. And there's different rules based on whatever pass it is. If it's a quick pass or a play action pass, we have different rules for different passes. And so you just have to be astute on making sure that you know exactly what your responsibility is because it changes. The back's responsibility, who he will block, and also the offensive line. So, and then a quarterback's got to know that if you got a guy coming off the corner, then he has to be aware that, which is we call it like hot. So because he has no protection, he's got to identify that guy himself and get rid of the ball. So that's kind of like what you look for when you come up to the line of scrimmage as a center.
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of people, it's really well known that the quarterback is up there reading the defense, but the center has defensive reading responsibilities as well, then it sounds like.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we practice a lot of that stuff too. We come up with different calls just to alert people, and sometimes you have to echo that to the back. Sometimes you have to make sure that you convey it up and down the line to the tackle, and the tight end's got to hear it as well. So, and we just got to identify who our protection is or who we're responsible for. I know a lot of people always talk about, you have to be dumb jocks, but when you're playing football, you can't be dumb. You got to know and be able to identify and make a split decision very quickly when you get up to the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you help them break that stereotype there. And you mentioned the running back a few times. I wanted to ask you, when did you find out? How did you find out that Jerome Bettis was traded to the Steelers?
Actually, Kent Stevenson, our O-line coach, and then also when that happened, it was during the off season, and I think we had come in, lifting weights in the off-season weightlifting program, and we just happened to be in the meeting room, and Ken Stevenson, who was my O-line coach, told me that that they had just acquired Jerome. So of course, we were happy about that.
And what was it like, blocking for him, and what does a Hall of Fame back like him? What is he able to do that other running backs, like an average to good NFL running back, would do?
I think it's just, how he ran the ball, because Jerome, being a bigger back, he was quick and very agile for his size. And he had those big legs, man. So Jerome, if you give him a little momentum, man, you got to get out of his way, because he'll run right into the back of you and make a hole and push you forward as well. So when you're blocking for Jerome, you got to make sure that you get out of the way, because if not, he's going to hit you in the side or hit you in the back and make a gap to get through. And, Jerome, he's just a great guy, man, just a heck of a back. And, for his size, man, he's so agile and light on his feet. And it was a pleasure blocking for him as well.
Yeah, I bet. It just must have been awesome, clearing the way for him.
It was. And I always tell people, I said, hey, you better get out of his way, because if not, because when he hits you, sometimes it's painful at times, sometimes when he would run into you.
Yeah, he would hurt linebackers, so you don't want him to hurt you, for sure.
No, because Jerome was about, 230, I think, 240, as a running back, and that's a big back. And, Jerome, he always got up with that little bounce and that little step, after you made a nice little run, and, he would get you all motivated, and you just wanted to do well for Jerome, and that goes for everybody, though. You still want to do well, but Jerome just has so much enthusiasm as a running back.
Now, when I've spoken to some other people about the 70s Steelers, I've heard that a lot of their scheme on the offensive line was trap blocking. Was it still like that when you got in there, or what was the scheme like?
Yeah, it was a trap blocking scheme. Tom Moore was the offensive coordinator at that time, and they did have a trapping offense, back in the 70s, because they had small linemen and quick linemen. So, but that was just the style of offense that Tom Moore ran, with the trap plays, counter traps, draw plays. And a lot of teams don't do the trapping offense anymore. It's more off-tackle running, dive plays and toss sweeps. And now it's more of a passing offense now, because it's more of high-scoring games now, with the way the offenses are structured.
And did that change happen while you were in the league? You played from, the late 80s to 2000.
No, it really, for us, we had an identity as a running team, and we're more of a running, downhill running team. I always call it smash mouth football. And, we identified with the run game, because we were going to run the ball at all costs. And that's what most offensive linemen like to do. You want to run and establish dominance over defense. Sometimes you get beat, but, you still got to try to establish that dominance as a run team because it wears defenses down. And then also it keeps the defense off the field so the defense can be effective, keeping their offense off the field. So it's a give and take kind of offense, and it's just a mindset, man. It's that workers' mentality kind of football, smash mouth football.
And, you always hear about controlling the line of scrimmage. Now, is that something, is that like game momentum too, where there's momentum throughout the game? Or does it change every play, or is it just something that kind of happens over the course of the game?
It kind of happens, just from the start of the game, because you come with your game plan, and the coordinator, he has about 15 to 20 plays that we're going to run that we run very well. And so you kind of build that momentum, trying to fill out the defense and making adjustments to whatever schemes they're doing. And as an offensive line, you want to assert your dominance over your opponent. And it becomes a mentality, physical mentality. You're going to force your wheel on somebody else who's trying to do the same to you. But hopefully we prevail. And so it's a momentum thing, as you have some success in the running game, and, you just continue to try to grind that ball out and eat up that clock.
And one thing I noticed about you playing center that's different than most anybody I've seen is a lot of times you were almost pulling like a guard and blocking downfield. Did they develop that with you, or was that something that developed over your career, or how did that come into play?
Yeah, hey Jackson, that started in 1992 when Bill Cowher came as head coach his first year, and and this kind of happened in training camp. We would always take the first Monday of the week and work and try to incorporate our first game planning. So that first Monday or first day of practice in training camp, we'd focus on our first game of the season. So we were playing. I think it was a Philly or something. We were gonna play our first game of the season, and so they were going to this new defense, like a 4-4 defense, where they had 4 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen, and so they're playing gaps. So it was wreaking havoc with the offensive line being able to make it up to the second level to block the linebackers. It was driving teams crazy. So I was in camp one day, and I told Ron Earhart, who was the offense coordinator at that time, I said, Ron, I can make a call, and I can have the guard either block my assignment, depending on how wide he is, and then I can pull as a center and go around and take his responsibility. And so we started to do that and kind of fool with it in practice to see how it would go. And after we ran it a few times, and I told Ron too that I would make calls, either a live call or a false call, just to let those guys know and kind of communicate it, because we all have to be on the same page, because you don't want to let a guy, free in the backfield to kill the running back. So we started doing that in 92, and we just kept fooling with it in training camp, and we started incorporating it in more and more of the offense. And that became our signature thing, me pulling from the center position.
Yeah, that was a signature part of your career, and that's really interesting. So it kind of started as an adjustment for one game, it sounds like, and then you guys just hung with it.
And then we stuck with it because we were so effective, and people couldn't stop us running the ball because they couldn't shade a guy and take up 2 linemen and then allow the linebacker to kind of do his own thing freestyle where he's unblocked. And so we started incorporating in our offense, man. And I tell you what, and then people tried to mimic the same thing as the blocking schemes that we were running.
And it all started with you in practice. But it takes the personnel, too, to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, you guys, of course, going to the Super Bowl, that year, was that, what do you think the elements were that were different that year than other years when you guys made the playoffs? And
oh, you're talking about as far as, having a successful season, or just
getting over the hump and winning the conference championship?
We knew we were good because we had young offensive line. We had some mobile guys. We had great backs and receivers. But, when we played in Super Bowl 30 against Dallas, we just got behind too quickly, with the 2 interceptions in the first quarter. And then of course, Dallas ended up scoring 2 early touchdowns early in the game. So that kind of throws you out of your game plan a little bit. So we had to make adjustments to our offense to try to at least catch up and score a few more points in order to, not be blown out of the game too early. So we didn't have a chance to catch up. But, unfortunately, we fell short.
The experience for you, I mean, you're standing in the tunnel before the game. I mean, what is that like? I mean, that's something that, everybody dreams about, and you're there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate, game for us anyway, because that's what you lift all those weights, run all those sprints and stadium steps and everything else, to make it to a Super Bowl. And that's your goal each and every year as a player and a team. And, to be there, it's kind of surreal, because you always see it on television. And then once you're finally there, then you see the workings of, the media day, where you got a stadium full of media from all over the country. And you're sitting in a chair and doing interviews with, all these people. And then next thing you know, it's the show. It's the biggest game going. And you're right in there. So, I mean, it was kind of surreal, to tell you the truth, but a great experience.
And from a fan's perspective, that particular game, Steelers, Cowboys, Super Bowl, that was a big Super Bowl rivalry in the 70s.
Yeah.
Did the guys from the 70s, were they kind of around you guys? Were they?
No, not that much. No, I don't think so. That I can remember anyway. But some of the guys from the 70s still live in Pittsburgh, so they were around us every once in a while. But I'm not for sure that specific time, were they around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times guys are like, well, whatever happened in the past, it's not, it's not our team, and so it was.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was 2 different franchises, even though to the fans it's like, Cowboys, Steelers.
Oh, I know, yeah. But, all the guys, man, Mel Blount and all those guys, and they still live in Pittsburgh, and they're at the games quite often.
Yeah, which I guess would be inspiring, I would think, as a...
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was thrilled to death as a rookie, meeting Mean Joe Green and him being a defensive line coach at that time and seeing Mike Webster and playing beside Mike Webster and just being in the same room with him. It is kind of strange, but surreal at the same time.
Speaking of being in the same room with those guys, then you make the Hall of Fame. Now you're in that club.
I know.
Yeah,
it still doesn't seem real. That every year that I go back to welcome in the new class, and I'm sitting there talking to, Joe Green, Dan Marino, all these guys, Joe Montana, and they know me by name, and now I've been part of that great fraternity for 10 years. And, and I see these guys almost every year, at multiple events. And it's just kind of strange just to be able to, sit and talk to those guys like we're talking now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was on the bus and I was just sitting with Tony Dorsett, and we were just talking about, just life and kids and, just talking about football, and just talking about just daily events. And it's the strangest thing in the world to be talking to a legend like Tony Dorsett and sitting with him on the bus and just having a good old time.
Yeah, wow. And he's got a lot of Pittsburgh roots too.
Yeah, University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Alumni. Yeah. So we talk about that and everything else, just life in general. And it's just strange, just to know that I have that relationship with all these Hall of Famers, and it's the strangest thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and you had that tremendous career, and you certainly redefined the position with the pulling on those plays, and you had a lot of success with the Steelers. You made a lot of Pro Bowls.
Yeah, very blessed.
What kind of goes through your mind when you look back and reflect on it all?
You know, it's just a multitude of just working hard, and you know, you still don't believe that you accomplished all the things that you accomplished and all the accolades that you received. You just don't think about it because, I mean, really, you just take it 1 year at a time and 1 day at a time, and that's all you can do. And then the culmination of that, then you get rewarded, with the Pro Bowls and potential Super Bowl. And then next thing you know, you get inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I never would have thought that I'd had so much success as a player, going into the pros as I did, playing with the Steelers for 13 seasons. I never thought I'd have that success, but I don't know. It's kind of crazy how things kind of work out, and you just never know what your future has to hold.
Yeah,
you never know what the future has for you.
That is inspiring. Well, Dermontti, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you think is important?
Jackson, the only thing I always tell kids, when I talk to them, I say, no matter what you do, always strive to be the best that you can be. Because, that's one thing that, my coach, Jerry Claiborne, in college, always emphasize, be the best you can be at everything you try, and never give up.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Game Before the Money podcast. Remember that the Game Before the Money is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to preserving the life stories of former NFL players. Please visit thegamebeforethemoney.com. Transcriptions of some episodes of the Game Before the Money podcast are also available at thegamebeforethemoney.com and are powered by our transcription partner, Sonix, spelled SONIX. Visit sonix.ai to learn more about their automated transcription services.